Chapter 1 14th of August, Harry West's Attic, Lichfield. Well, hey! Ben Brooker was smiling broadly. His eyes were wide with excitement, and he was gleefully rubbing his hands. Wow, this place is huge, mate. This is going to take us ages. Nice idea for a change, though. Just look at all this stuff, he added enthusiastically, staring at all the boxes and crates stacked head high all around him. There's all sorts of stuff in here. Boxes, jewellery, hats, books, flags, he shouted as he rummaged through the nearest box. This is awesome. Jake West smiled also, a little surprised at such an enthusiastic response from his 15-year-old best friend. He ran his fingers through his hair and flicked it away from his eyes. Told you, Harry's lived his life to the full, all right. I think he's been everywhere there is that's worth going to, and he's brought back a little something with him each time. Though, I'm not sure the army knew what he was doing, if you get my drift. Anyway, let's just have a look around before we start work, eh? Before we start cleaning it all out. Grandad will be up here soon, and I want to have a mooch around before he comes. I've never really been allowed to before. They made their way through the artifacts to the rear of the room in order to begin their search, but Ben's keen eye caught sight of something of interest. Hey Jake, what's that? He asked, pointing towards a ripped and torn Union Jack flag hanging on the corner wall above an old wooden chest. Huh? Jake replied, who'd continued walking through the boxes and was checking out some other stuff. Oh, that. It's an old battle flag from some war or other. I'm not really sure what the story is behind it though. Ben's eyes lit up immediately as his interest soared. His family history meant that he had a fascination around all things military, and his curiosity just had to be satisfied. Well, alrighty then, that's where I'm starting, he shouted happily. He walked over to the flag and stared at it for a little while. Then he knelt down at the foot of the chest and scraped off the thick layer of dust that had formed on the top. The initials HW were crudely carved into the wood, indicating clearly that this was Harry's chest. He thought of calling Jake over to show him what he had found. Harry was his granddad after all. However, he didn't because he was having too much fun. Instead, he opened it and rested the top on the two worn string ties that held it in place. Moments later though, he could not contain his excitement. Oi Jake, you there mate? Ben shouted loudly, unable to see his friend in amongst all the junk, but now deciding that he had to share his discovery with him. There's lots of old photos in here. Your granddad's in most of them. I mean, he's a bit younger, obviously, but that's him alright, he stated, staring closely at a few of the pictures of Harry from his army days. No reply. Jake was way too engrossed in his own voyage of discovery and hadn't really heard what he'd said. So the enthralled Ben delved deeper into the chest, and beneath some more photographs, he found an old and battered, rectangular-shaped box. He took it out and opened it without delay. Jake! Jake! He screamed, thrilled and amazed by his find. Come and look at this! What's up now? Jake asked as he made his way carefully through the room to join his friend. I was just beginning to enjoy myself. There's... The youngster stopped talking in mid-sentence as he suddenly caught sight of the box and its contents. Oh wow, I never knew, he said humbly. I mean, I knew he was in the army, of course I did, but... I know, interrupted Ben, holding out the collection of shiny medals and ribbons in front of Jake with extreme care, as if presenting them to his friend. Respect you, eh? Good on the old boy. Wonder what he got them for. I can't help there, Ace, answered Jake as he examined the medals with pride. He's a private soul, my granddad. Never talks about anything of note. I only get to see him every now and then. If my dad knew we were here, he'd have a fit. Oh, began Ben. They're still not talking. What's all that about? It's been years. You'd think they'd have patched things up by now. Yeah, I know, you're right. But what can I do? I'm like Piggy in the middle. Whenever I raise the subject, I just get told to shut up and mind my own business. Or they ignore me completely, which is even worse. My mum won't say anything either. It's crap, mate, but that's life, eh? Just gotta live with it, I suppose. Jake sighed deeply. Ah well, anyway, come on, what's in the chest? He asked, deliberately changing the subject, conscious of the fact that his granddad could interrupt them at any moment. Ben carefully removed the next layer of photos as Jake watched. Underneath them all was a collection of old letters, and he took out the top bundle. A photograph was inserted under the elastic band that held them all together. Oh yes, jackpot! Cried Jake ecstatically as he recognised the figure in the picture. That's my Nan! What? Great! You haven't got anything of hers, have you? You know I haven't. She died before I was born, remember? Jake answered bluntly. He held the photo in front of him and stared lovingly at it for a few seconds as wet, glistening tears began to form in his eyes. You never found out what happened to her? As she died, I mean. You never said too much about that. I know your dad doesn't like to talk about it, but what about your granddad? Has he ever explained it? No, Harry's just like my dad. He clams up whenever I mention it. I know it was a fire, but getting anything else out of them, it's like trying to get blood from a stone. Ben sighed sympathetically and then looked down at the bundle in Jake's hand. Sorry I asked. So what about these letters? Are you going to open them or what? He asked, motioning toward them with his head before rubbing his hands across his short, crew-cut hair. A short silence indicated Jake was thinking seriously about it for a moment. He desperately wanted to say yes, but in the end, he knew he couldn't. No, I think I need to talk to my granddad first. He was concerned at how Harry might react if he opened the letters without permission, and he was about to walk away having made up his mind, but he stopped as he watched his irrepressible friend reach forward into the chest once more, only this time with real conviction. Hey, look at this! Ben exclaimed as he pulled out a beautifully ornate wooden box. What is it? Replied Jake. Looks like a music box or something? Ben held it upward toward the skylight for a better view. The box was made out of a wood they did not recognise, and it was intricately carved with exquisite patterns all the way around. On its top was a crest formed out of a different type of wood altogether, a shade darker than the one used to make the box itself. It was shaped like an eagle with outspread wings, and it was embossed onto the box somehow, so that it protruded ever so slightly. That's weird, said Ben, as he examined the strange object in more detail. I can't see any way of opening the thing. There's no hinges or anything. There must be. Here, let me have it. Listen, I'm telling you, it won't open, snapped Ben in frustration, as he tugged and pulled at the sides. It feels hollow, but as if there's something inside. Ah, it's no use. I can't do it. He gave up trying and reluctantly passed the box to Jake, who inspected it thoroughly. Ben was right. There was no obvious opening mechanism. He turned it around and around, searching for a catch or a lock of some description, and as he did, his right palm passed over the crest. Click! The unexpected sound was just loud enough for the boys to hear, and they instinctively looked at one another. Boom! A colossal bang shook the building and frightened them both. It was a deafening noise, as if an explosion had occurred nearby. Christ, what the hell was that? Shrieked Ben. It sounded like a bomb, only it was in here. Jake's eyes did not move from the box as he replied in an unsteady voice. I don't know what that was. He stopped once again in mid-sentence, as he suddenly felt the box move slightly in his hands. It's opening! Look, it's opening! He screamed, in his fear and excitement, yelling at Ben as if his best friend couldn't see what was right in front of him. The top of the box began to split into two, and very slowly, each top panel moved outward. Both sides began shifting, layer after layer, moving slightly away from the centre until the box had opened fully and each side resembled small, inverted stairs. The back had remained completely intact, but it had now extended the entire length of the new object so that it resembled the shape of a small, opened sewing box. "Hey, look at that!" shouted Jake, staring directly into the open box.